Hey guys, Tyler Bennett here, TB Real Estate, and I appreciate your interest in learning more about our company, what we do, how it works. As you know, we specifically focus on investment real estate and helping people build portfolios. And I want to give you a little bit of background, on me, our company, why we do what we do. And so as you learn more of the details, you see all the pro formas and the numbers, you can see kind of how it all comes together and why we do what we do today and what we've learned up to this point. So I'm going to take you all the way back, 2004, 2005. I've always been in investment real estate, always been a numbers guy, and I like the analytics, the strategy of what you can do inside of real estate. And if I were to meet you out golfing or on a chairlift and you were to ask me what I did for a living, I like to explain it like I'm a financial consultant. I just use real estate as a vehicle instead of stocks or mutual funds or bonds or insurance products. And why? Because I think it's the best product. I think I can yield a better return than those other products. And I also love all the benefits inside of real estate, which we'll dive into a little bit as we go through this. But 2004, 5, 6, 7, we were doing all types of real estate. I was building my own portfolio. I was helping clients build their portfolios. We were doing fix and flips. We were doing deals at auctions. We were doing buy and hold. We were doing lease options, all kinds of different strategies, spec building. We were developing land, and it all worked until all of a sudden it didn't. And I learned a lot. And one of the biggest lessons I learned was too much emphasis on speculation, meaning everything goes right when the market's going up. And I was young and reckless, if you will, but the reality is we weren't making decisions with a good plan B in place. It was simply, if we build this house for $700,000 and sell it for $800,000, that's great. If we buy this investment property or put it under contract while it's being built for $300,000, and by the time it's done being built, it's worth $350,000, great. But what happens if the market shifts? Right? As everybody knows, the financial crisis happened and the market drastically shifted. And, I got phone calls from clients saying, what do I do? I built this house and now I can't sell it for what I'm into it. I'd have to write a check for $100,000 or $200,000 to sell this. And if I keep it and I put a mortgage on it, I'm going to be negative $2,000 a month in cash flow. So what are my options? And the reality is there wasn't great options. It was basically write a big check or write a smaller check every single month for as long as you can. I personally did that for years with some of my properties, or give the keys to the bank, right? And your credit takes a hit and you move forward. And so I learned a lot through all of that. And as a result, I really narrowed down on the type of real estate that I wanted to do for me personally, and that I wanted to do and help clients build. And that was just this entry-level single family home. So as you probably know, it's 3-4 bed, 2.5 bath, 2-car garage, new to relatively new type of homes. And we focused on those. And in my own portfolio, I had a home that I bought in 2006. So if you look back on a chart, arguably one of the worst times ever to buy a house, because shortly after, values went way down. And it was a house, I'm in Utah, just down the street from where I am right now. And I paid about $225,000 for it. And I was renting it for like $1,400 a month, I think, and I was cash flowing a couple $100 a month. In 2006, 2007, market crashes, but I continued to cash flow. And in fact, through 2008, 2009, demand increased. Well, why? Because less people were buying homes. And so they still needed a place to live, and this entry-level price point stayed really strong. And so even though that house went from $225,000 to maybe $160,000, and if I had sold it during that time, I would have lost money. I didn't feel pressure to sell it because I was still positive cash flow. I was positive cash on cash, ROI, right? The cash flow. I was also paying down principal. I was getting depreciation and tax benefits. And so I can be really, really patient. And I can wait a long time. I still have that house today. I could sell it in a weekend for probably $550,000. I actually just turned a tenant. I had a tenant in there for 6-7 years and they just moved out. I'm turning the tenant. It's released. Somebody's moving in a couple weeks. And I think the new lease is $2,300. And I don't have a mortgage on it anymore. I've paid it off over those years. And so I've made on that one house over $500,000 between the cash flow and the price appreciation over more than a decade now. And had I not been in a positive cash flow situation, I may have felt pressured to pay that off. And that's the kind of the foundation or the thesis of our program is buy product that is very, very predictable, that there's always demand, there's always customers for. We always want to be able to rent it no matter what the market conditions are, and in a type of product where rents don't go down or soften as the economy softens, right? I'm filming this video Q4 of 2025, and if you look at the short-term rental market or some of the other segments inside of real estate, office space and commercial, those are really, really soft right now. And so there's a lot of people that have those in their portfolio that are suffering from a cash flow perspective. And while rents haven't gone up much the last 12, 24 months, our type of product is fine because they're not going down. They just kind of stay flat and then they trickle up over time, and over a long period of time, rents always go up. And so I created a product based off of this. And initially we did it in Utah in my own backyard. And then I realized, like a financial advisor would, if I were to ask you the question, when was the last time you talked to your financial advisor, whoever's managing your money in the stock market, to only buy stocks or build your portfolio with companies that are headquartered within an hour or two drive of where you live, right? It sounds silly. You wouldn't even think to ask that. And you want exposure to the entire national market, maybe international market. And based off your time frame, your risk tolerance, the amount of capital, all these criteria, your stock advisor or financial advisor is going to build your portfolio based off of that. And he's not going to consider where you live or where he lives. Yet in real estate, a lot of people approach it like that. They think, I'm going to buy in my backyard. It's a tangible product. I want to drive by it, wave, touch it, feel it, whatever it is. It's more comfortable to buy real estate in your own backyard. And I get that. And that's a barrier that we have and that we get to overcome. And there's a lot of trust that's put onto us and my team in order to make sure that we make you feel comfortable about that. But that said, I decided because I know my box, I know exact strategy that I have, I'm going to identify based off overall market conditions, which markets produce the highest yield or highest return for my clients. And then I'm going to go set up infrastructure in those markets. So to condense the story, we went to Phoenix, then we went to Las Vegas. 2010 to about 2015, 16, we did over 2,400 houses in those markets. It was like the wild, wild west. We were going to auctions with briefcases with cashier's checks in it. And it was a ton of fun. But what happened is values, they crashed and they went really, really low, and they recovered very quickly, quicker than most people anticipated. But rents didn't climb at nearly that level. So a house we bought in 2011 for $125,000 that rented for $1,400, 5 years later, it was worth $225,000 and rents had gone up $50 or $100. And so those markets became not the best markets to continue to acquire homes in. And so we shifted most of our focus away from the West, and then we went out to the Southeast and Midwest where we are today. But Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, North Carolina, South Carolina, all of those markets we've bought in over the last 10 years. And specifically today, our top markets are Florida, Arkansas, Tennessee. Those are probably top 3 markets right now. And it's simply because you can buy a brand new house in Arkansas for $215,000. That rents for $1,600, $1,700 a month, and you put 25% down, you can get positive $250, $300 a month in cash flow. Or in Florida, you can get a brand new house for $290,000. That is positive cash flow, and it's in a growth market, right? A lot of people are growing or moving into that market and creating demand, creating customers. And so part of what we do is we help our clients manage their ongoing portfolio. We not only help you identify the right market, we do the mortgages, we do the insurance, we help facilitate the property management and micromanage the property managers, but we also analyze and do portfolio reviews annually and pay attention to what's going on with your portfolio, because we may come to you like we did our clients in Phoenix or Las Vegas in 2015 or 2016 and said, hey, we could sell and we could turn one house into 2 houses, or even one house into 3 houses, or 2 houses into 4 houses. And we could double or triple your cash flow with no new capital infusions, right? We utilize 1031 exchanges to continue to defer and punt out any sort of taxes on gains and just continue to build and build and build, which obviously the ROIs just compound over time and get greater and greater and greater. And our clients over the years have averaged 25% plus annualized return on their investment when you take into account the cash flow, the principal reduction, the depreciation and tax benefits, and then of course appreciation. And so the program is really centered around this predictable buy and hold strategy. You know, we typically hold for, I'll say, anywhere from about 4 to 8 years, maybe even up to 10 years based on market conditions. But over that time frame, it's highly likely that, one, there's been an environment that maybe rates go down. And if rates go down, we're going to reach out and say, hey, we could refinance and we could improve your cash flow. And here's the cost to refinance. Here's the increase in cash flow. Here's a break-even analysis. As long as we feel like we're going to hold that property for at least that long, then it's something to consider, right? But over that time frame, it's probable that you're going to see an equity growth. You know, certain periods of time when you're going to see that appreciation kick in. And then there's probably going to be opportunities in other markets based on the overall economic environment where it makes more sense to buy in. And so we continue to be in touch to let you know, hey, it's a good time to sell, and we could transfer over here and we could go buy over here, and we could just continue to optimize and improve your return on investment. So that's what this is all about. And really the end goal is to create passive income, right? It's what everybody wants. They want mailbox money. So often we get caught up in the mix of trading time for dollars. And we wake up one day and say, hey, I'm running out of time. Did I create enough dollars? Or I don't see a clear path to when I'm ever going to be able to scale back time because I continue to need to have dollars come in. Or, hey, you know, I met with a client just the other day that's 40 years old, good income. They want to try to retire by the time they're 50 to 55, not 60 to 65 or 65 plus. And so we worked backwards with, okay, what do we need to do to create a portfolio that creates enough income for you on your desired timeline where you could take control of your time? And then you can continue to work or go part-time or do whatever you want to do, pursue your passions because you have that passive residual income coming in. And for me, that's what it's all about. Oftentimes when we're in growth phase, we utilize leverage, right? With $75,000, you can buy a $225,000 house or $250,000 house, and you get appreciation on that $250,000. Right? And that is significant growth and ROI on that $75,000. There's not many other vehicles out there where you can do that. You can't go buy $250,000 of Apple stock with $75,000, right? You just can't. You can buy $75,000 of Apple stock. And so that tool of leverage is extremely powerful when we're in growth phase. But of course, we have to service that debt, and that costs money, and that eats into cash flow. And so the concept is when we're in growth phase, so call it the first 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, based on everybody's individual timelines, when we're in growth phase, let's utilize leverage, grow, and then we can finally get to a point where I like to call it annuitize your real estate portfolio. Now we want to put the emphasis on cash flow. Well, how do we maximize cash flow? We pay them off, and we eliminate the debt. And not only does it increase cash flow, but it lets your head hit your pillow easy at night, right? If we don't have a mortgage to service, that's a really comfortable position to be in. I'll conclude with kind of sharing my personal story with my real estate portfolio. I'm 45, almost 46 years old. And going into my 40th birthday, I've been really disciplined with my real estate portfolio for over 20 years. And I have my real estate business, my rental business over here, and I kind of put up a wall and said, here's my active income, right? I have a job. I help people acquire real estate. My wife and I have owned some other businesses, some med spas and day spas. And so we have our income over here, and we're going to make sure our income satisfies our lifestyle. And then any excess that we have, we had a plan, and we're going to put it over here into our real estate and build this portfolio. And this is going to produce cash flow. And we're going to leave the cash flow inside of here, let it accumulate, add money to it as we can, buy more houses, sell one, buy two, right? Grow. Well, if you do that forever, you can create significant net worth. But at what point, for me, I wanted to get to a point where I owed nothing, I owned them all outright, and I could flip the switch and now the cash flow could come over here. And so when I was about 40, I had about $12,000 of cash flow happening inside of my real estate portfolio. I had 19 properties. And so I just geeked out on a spreadsheet and put up all kinds of different scenarios and said, okay, if I wanted to, in the next 12 months, own all of my homes, what would I have to do? And it was basically sell 8 or 9 of those houses and own 10 or 11 free and clear and have $20,000, $22,000 a month coming in every single month for the rest of my life. And that's going to increase 2 to 3% annually, right? Rents go up. And eventually I could sell 1, turn it into 2, and continue to optimize. And that was a really comfortable situation, but I didn't need that $20,000 then. And so I crunched some other numbers and did some scenarios and said, oh, well, what if I start, instead of accumulating the cash flow and buying more, what if I just start every month I get excess cash flow and I just start paying them off? And I basically just did the Dave Ramsey snowball effect, right? What's my lowest mortgage? Oh, it's $60,000 on this house that I've owned for 13 years. Let's pay that off. So in 5-6 months, boom, gone. Well, now my cash flow just went up by $1,200 because I eliminated a mortgage. And I just did that over and over and over. And I'm about 1.5 years, 2 years out. It was about a 7-8 year program, and I've stuck to it. And I'm a couple years away from, and that 19 homes is now like 22 houses because I've sold some and bought some and traded it in and out of markets to get more cash flow. But I'm at about 20% leverage in my real estate rental portfolio right now. And I'm really close to having it paid off. And now that number is going to be over $40,000. It took me 7-8 more years of patience and discipline, right, to get there. But I liked that bigger number better. And I say all of that to say, the more houses that you have for a longer period of time, the more options you're going to have when it comes to maximizing your passive income. And that's what we're passionate about. That's what we like to do, is help put people in a situation where they're going to be better off than their current trajectory, and then they have options. And ultimately, if we can replace active income with passive income and get your time back and you get to spend your time how you want it, that's the why. You know, real estate is just simply the vehicle, and the why is to put people in that type of position. So we're excited to get to know you. We're excited to do a customized game plan with you and look at your current situation of where you are and what you have to work with, and map out what it could look like working with us and what that looks like in 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. And so thanks for taking the time to listen to this, and we look forward to being in touch.